The Bible may not be the first place we think of when negotiating, but the book of Nehemiah reveals powerful principles on how to act with justice and integrity, even in real estate transactions. Nehemiah teaches us that it's not just about profit, but about fulfilling our commitments and considering the impact on our community. Imagine if your negotiations could reflect biblical values, benefiting both you and those around you. Nehemiah, facing immense challenges in the rebuilding of Jerusalem, reveals how property should be managed with justice, integrity, and a vision for the common good. In this video, we will explore some practical and profound lessons that can transform the way we handle buying and selling properties. So, let's dive into the content. Grab your coffee or water, sit comfortably, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I can already tell you, the lessons from Nehemiah will surprise you, showing how the Bible can guide even the most complex negotiations. Let's start by analyzing the biblical standard for real estate transactions. When we think of real estate transactions today, it's common to focus on legal and financial aspects. But have we ever considered what the Bible has to teach us about this? Since the beginning of biblical history, land and property ownership have always carried a spiritual and moral dimension. The book of Nehemiah, in particular, offers a rich perspective on how properties were managed and exchanged at the time. Nehemiah, who lived during a time of great challenges for the people of Israel, shows us that acquiring property was not merely a matter of convenience or profit. While leading the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls, Nehemiah also faced the task of restoring social justice, especially in the context of debts and properties. He emphasized that transactions should be fair and equitable, reflecting God's character. The Bible teaches us that any transaction must be conducted with integrity and honesty. Nehemiah rebuked those who exploited the poor, showing that financial gain should not come at the expense of others. This principle is extremely relevant today, in a world where profit is often placed above ethics. Moreover, Nehemiah highlighted the importance of keeping commitments. In the context of buying and selling, this means honoring contracts and agreements, a theme that, while ancient, is fundamental in modern negotiations. When someone commits to selling or buying something, that commitment must be upheld, not just out of legal obligation, but as an expression of character. It's also interesting to note that Nehemiah made an effort to ensure that lands were redistributed fairly among the people, reflecting a concern for the common good. This vision of social justice is something we can apply today when considering the impact of our negotiations on our community and society as a whole. What does being a just administrator mean to you? How does Nehemiah teach us about the importance of transparency in all our actions? These questions gain relevance as we explore Nehemiah's role as not just a spiritual leader, but also an administrative one. Nehemiah was a leader who faced a situation of chaos and injustice. The walls of Jerusalem were destroyed, and the people were disheartened. He not only took the initiative to rebuild the walls, but also to restore social order. One of the first measures he took was to ensure that all actions were carried out transparently. He knew that corruption and a lack of clarity are the greatest enemies of effective administration. During the reconstruction process, Nehemiah was confronted with the reality that many Jews were being exploited by their own countrymen. Lands and properties were taken as collateral, and debts were destroying families. Nehemiah then did something that few leaders would. He exposed this injustice publicly and demanded that the properties be returned and the debts forgiven. This courageous act of transparency is a model of how we should act, especially in real estate transactions. Transparency, in Nehemiah's view, was not just a matter of morality, but of administrative efficiency. He knew that to rebuild a nation, it was necessary to have the people's trust. This trust could only be gained through clear actions, where everyone knew exactly what was happening and why. This lesson is essential today, especially in the real estate sector, where a lack of transparency can lead to distrust and conflict. Nehemiah reminds us that being transparent is not only the right thing to do, but it's also essential for long-term success. Clear negotiations, where all parties have access to the same information, create an environment of trust and mutual respect. Furthermore, Nehemiah also teaches us the importance of not taking advantage of a position of power. He could have easily benefited from the lands and properties during the reconstruction, but chose not to. This shows us that transparency and justice must go hand in hand. True transparency, as exemplified by Nehemiah, involves not only clarity in negotiations, but also honesty in our intentions. In any transaction, especially in buying and selling property, it is crucial that all parties are sincere about their intentions and expectations. When considering a real estate transaction, we rarely think about the impact it can have on a community. However, Nehemiah, with his insightful vision, teaches us that every decision, especially regarding properties, should take into account the collective well-being. But how did Nehemiah manage to integrate the value of the community into his actions? And what does that mean for us today? When Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem, he found a fragmented and vulnerable community. The fallen walls were not just a security issue. They were a symbol of division and despair among the people. For Nehemiah, rebuilding the walls was both a physical and symbolic act of restoring unity and strength to the community. And he did this not alone, but by mobilizing everyone, from the priests to the common citizens, showing that the strength of a community lies in its cohesion and cooperation. This community vision of Nehemiah is a powerful lesson for the modern real estate market. When we buy or sell a property, we are not just transferring assets. We are affecting lives and potentially shaping the future of an entire community. The Bible teaches us that we should act with consideration and respect for others. And Nehemiah exemplifies this by prioritizing the collective well-being over individual interests. Additionally, Nehemiah promoted the idea that the prosperity of one is the prosperity of all. He encouraged those with resources to share them with the needy, ensuring that no one was left behind. This principle of generosity and care for others is something that can and should be applied to our buying and selling practices. When considering the impact of our real estate decisions, we should think about how they can benefit or harm the community around us. Another crucial point was combating exploitation. Nehemiah was vehemently against the practice of charging exorbitant interest on loans given to the poor, especially when these loans were secured by land. He recognized that such exploitation not only weakened individuals, but also undermined the social structure. In a modern context, this makes us reflect on fair business practices and the importance of avoiding actions that could exploit or harm those in more vulnerable positions. Nehemiah also showed that rebuilding a community requires sacrifice. He himself did not claim any land or property during his time leading the people, even though he had the right to do so as governor. This example of personal sacrifice for the common good is a powerful lesson for anyone involved in real estate transactions. We must be willing to give up some personal benefits if it means strengthening and prospering our community. In the end, what Nehemiah teaches us is that buying and selling transactions should be more than simple business. They should be opportunities to strengthen the community and promote collective well-being. This perspective challenges us to reconsider the way we approach our own negotiations, with a greater focus on the social impact of our decisions. Having explored Nehemiah's lessons on justice, transparency, and community, a crucial question arises. How can we apply these principles in today's negotiations? In a world where profit and personal gain are often prioritized, how can we incorporate biblical ethics into our business practices? The first lesson Nehemiah teaches us is about the importance of a long-term vision. When negotiating a property, it's easy to focus solely on immediate benefits, but Nehemiah reminds us that every decision has a lasting impact. Before finalizing a transaction, we must consider not only financial gains, but also how that action will affect the community in the long run. For example, when selling a property, we can think about who the new owner will be and how they will contribute to the neighborhood's well-being. Another vital aspect is integrity. Nehemiah, in his leadership, demonstrated that integrity is essential to maintaining trust and order. In modern negotiations, this means being transparent and honest from the start. We must avoid hiding important information or manipulating data to gain an advantage. Nehemiah teaches us that the true strength of a successful negotiation lies in mutual trust, something that can only be achieved through integrity. We must also consider the principle of fairness in transactions. Nehemiah was a staunch advocate of social and economic justice. In a modern context, this reminds us of the importance of negotiating fairly, without exploiting others' weaknesses. This can translate into practices such as ensuring that everyone involved in the negotiation clearly understands the terms and conditions, and that no party is disadvantaged. Additionally, Nehemiah valued commitment to the community. Applying this today means that when negotiating, we should think about how our actions can help build or strengthen the community around us. This might include considering the environmental impact of a construction project, supporting local development, or even investing in projects that benefit the community as a whole. One important point we must also consider is the ethical use of power. Nehemiah could have used his position for personal benefit, but he chose not to. In negotiations, especially those where one party has more power or influence, it is essential to use that advantage ethically, without exploiting or oppressing the other party. This creates a more balanced and fair negotiation environment. Furthermore, Nehemiah's leadership shows us the importance of setting an example. As leaders or participants in a negotiation, we must model the behavior we want to see in others. This means acting with ethics, transparency, and consideration in all our interactions. When we lead by example, we encourage others to do the same, creating a culture of fair and ethical negotiation. Finally, Nehemiah teaches us about the importance of seeking the greater good. Instead of focusing solely on personal gain, he was committed to the well-being of all the people of Israel. In modern negotiations, this challenges us to think beyond our own interests and consider how our actions can contribute to the common good. This might involve making decisions that benefit not only ourselves but also our community and society. In conclusion, applying Nehemiah's principles in modern negotiations is not just a matter of morality, but a way to ensure fairer, more ethical, and sustainable transactions. By doing so, we not only follow a path of integrity, but also contribute to building a more just and prosperous society. Throughout this video, we've explored how Nehemiah's lessons can transform the way we handle real estate transactions. From the importance of transparency to the impact on the community, we've seen that the Bible offers deep and relevant wisdom for modern challenges. When we apply these principles in our negotiations, we not only ensure fairer transactions but also contribute to building a more integral and united society. May we follow Nehemiah's example and incorporate these values into each of our decisions. If this content touched you positively, leaving a like is the best way to express your gratitude and encourage us to produce more content like this. I also invite you to share the greatest lesson you learned from this video. Leave a comment with your reflection or something that touched you in a special way. I would feel very honored and happy to know how this message impacted your life. See you in the next video.